All right, welcome into Sports Bit. Betting insights today. I'm Paulie Howard. He's Teddy Covers. Market report, big game breakdown, play of the day, National League win totals. We'll get to all that coming up. How you doing, Teddy?
I'm doing all right, Paul, but we got to start this with the first take. I know you've got something to say about Dwight Howard this morning.
So Dwight Howard's on the market, and the Rockets are calling several teams. It's interesting. They had a come to Jesus meeting after the tough loss at Portland. A listless performance. They were blown out. So Harden, Howard, Morey, and Bickerstaff all had a meeting. They come out of the meeting and say, that's it, we got to move Howard. And they get on the phone and they start making calls. Why anyone would want this guy is beyond me. He's going to opt out anyways after next year. That guy's due $23 million. He's a 14 and 12 guy, and he's only playing for a paycheck. That's all he cares about. Not to mention, when you got teams like Boston, the Celtics don't want any part of this guy. And if you're got a young team, he could poison a locker room. And if you're up-tempo and like to score, guess what? He brings that to a grinding halt because of Hacker Howard can't shoot free throws, and he wants his post-ups. And the thing that scares me the most is, you remember that Orlando team that made the trip to the finals, they surrounded him with shooters, and they lost to the Lakers. But since that year, he's never improved or worked on his game. He still doesn't have any post-up moves. I know Barkley and Shaq call him out on that all the time. They do a great job. But the guy has never worked on his game. The free throw shooting is still an embarrassment. Stay away, buyer beware. You don't want any part of Dwight Howard. What do you have, Teddy?
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on Howard, by the way. And then the irony, of course, is that he's a name, so people still talk about him. But the bottom line is that Dwight Howard has not won an NBA championship. I don't necessarily expect that he will in the course of his career, unless he somehow ends up as a role player on a contender who they don't play down the stretch, of course, because of the Hacker Howard keeps him out of play in key playoff games during crunch time. So I'm with you on Dwight Howard, but I got to talk about a personal situation here. I got to talk about, it's my anniversary today, second anniversary.
Oh!
And of course, yeah. And married life is fine, but I mean, I was one of these guys, I was engaged for like 8 years, Paul. Maybe it was 9 years. It was eternity, obviously. In that time, we moved in together, we moved out, we had fights, we got back together, we had a kid, all of that. And now it's time, all right, she said, shit or get off the pot. It's time to get married.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So I got two choices. I can do it mid-season, or I can do it with this big planned wedding over the summer and invite 1 million people and have headaches for months on end. I'm like, look, honey, let's go to the Strip. I'm like, we don't necessarily have to do a drive-through, but let's at least go. Let's just go get this done. Let's go get this done right now, next week. I'm like, when can we do it? Oh, perfect. The All-Star break. Boom. Valentine's Day. So you got anniversary and Valentine's Day back-to-back. Kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, you got to do 2 dinners, so be it. But the bottom line is, as a sports bettor, this is the quietest weekend that you're going to have from the beginning of August, at least until the NBA playoffs start, and probably on beyond that. So when you're looking for these windows, say, all right, as a sports bettor, when can I actually do this? Bang. NBA All-Star Weekend, done and done. So, yeah, I had to do a little Valentine's yesterday. Yeah, I got to do some anniversary stuff tonight, but getting it all out of the way, worth its price in gold, Paul. I recommend that to all you serious sports bettors out there. If you're going to have to deal with this stuff, chunk it together like I did. So far, so good on the marriage front.
When's her birthday?
October. I got month. That's the beauty of it. I don't have to worry about any gifts between now and October. I got October, I got Christmas, and I got this weekend. Done.
You are a cheap bastard.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I thought you were going to complete the trifecta there. I thought her birthday was in February too. Jesus.
Oh, I wish. That'd be great if it'd be the next day.
God.
Couldn't be done.
I think it's. I put Valentine's Day right up there with New Year's Eve. I mean, what a scam. The day on the calendar shouldn't tell you how you dictate and show someone how much love and affection you have for them. It's like New Year's Eve. These people who never drink. Well, I guess I got to go out and get drunk now. And I never drink, and I'm going to vomit and urinate in the streets and act like a fool. Where it's total amateur hour. So, nice job there. But I see where you're going. You have your priorities straight. All right, time to go over bad beats and wrong sides. Well, I mean, this one's easy. If you played the under in the All-Star game, holy Christ. So the last 3 All-Star games have had a record for the highest scoring games. 196 to 173, 163 to 158, and 163 to 155. How about these guys last night just backing up and letting people go in for dunks?
Well, the All-Star game's not about defense, But the difference in what's happened over the last 3 years, because remember, prior to the 2014 All-Star game, if you bet every All-Star game in history under 305, you cash every ticket. And I had guys who I consider to be fairly sharp bettors telling me, oh, yeah, look at the history. The history says you got to bet this game under. I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm playing this game under. And anybody that was like in the first quarter, that wager was dead. I mean, it was dead nuts dead by the end of one. Which is never a good sign to be. And, they had that brick fest to start the second, and all of a sudden, here's this brick fest, clunk, 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 and then they hit a couple three-pointers, and boom, it's right back on pace. I mean, but the methodology of the guys who were telling you, were recommending under, you got to bet under here. It's like, I understand what the long-term history says. The long-term history is very real. But when it comes to what's going on in the modern era of the NBA, and basically we're talking about the last few years with the rise of the Warriors and their style of play, and the Spurs who initiated this style of play and the success they've had with it, everybody's doing it. What did we have, 153-point shots taken last night? That was sick. Yeah. Bad bet for anyone who had the under.
And how about Virginia money line on Saturday? Well, you call it travel. Not once but twice they missed that on Duke and Grayson Allen. That was horrible.
Yeah, that's a bad beat if you had Virginia on the money line. And obviously the Cavs were in that game. They still covered the spread at the close, but in the 1-point loss. And let's just be real about this. When's the last time you remember a controversial call going against Duke at the end of a tight game?
Excellent point.
I mean, doesn't happen very often. And, tough beat if you had the Cavs on the money line when the guy obviously travels twice. Not once, twice. But nonetheless, Duke gets the money for those who had them on the money line.
Market movers, market report, line moves. Take it away, Teddy. What do you have?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the early action for Monday. We've seen sharp money come in on the Manhattan Jaspers tonight against Monmouth. We're going to get into this game big time when it comes to big game breakdown. But the early money has come on Manhattan. Monmouth opened as high as -15, now down to 13.5. We've seen money for the ESPN game, Kansas Oklahoma State under. That opened as high as 143.5. I'm seeing 137.5 on my live betting screen as we speak. Significant under money there. And of course, both teams have been trending strongly to the under in that matchup. In fact, neither team has played an over in 8 February games, and that includes a pair of games that went into overtime. Other market movers this morning, we've seen money for Oakland University against Wright State. We've seen money for Wisconsin, Green Bay against Wisconsin, Milwaukee. That's an interesting scheduling matchup. Both of those teams have been on these extended road trips, which you don't see in college very often. Green Bay hasn't played at home they played 5 straight games on the road, and this is the last of 5 straight games on the road for Milwaukee. So we're seeing support for the Phoenix, I think largely based on the fact they're finally getting a home game. They look pretty gassed in their last road tilt at the end of that road trip this past weekend.
Big game breakdown, National League win totals, and play of the day coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insights today. It's coming up next. 2 interesting games here. First, Monmouth and Manhattan. They played earlier in the season, and Manhattan beat them. Now Monmouth's laying a big number at home, and they're thinking NCAA tournament and an at-large bid if they stub their toe in the MAC conference tournament. Teddy, what do you think of this one?
I mean, this is such a lousy year for competitive mid-majors.
Totally agree.
When we're talking about the Wichita States of the world and the Gonzagas of the world, yeah, they're still there. But there aren't a lot of upstarts this year that you can say, this team's got a chance to pull off an upset or 2 or 3 come March. And Monmouth is one of those teams that has that potential. And, of course, all the hype's been about the antics from Monmouth's bench. I mean, you look at this picture, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. These guys have gotten their fair share of hype for a non-name mid-major program. But the bottom line is we're talking about a team that has road wins at Georgetown, a road win at UCLA, a neutral win over Notre Dame. They've stepped up in class extremely well against quality foes, and not just covered point spreads. They won these games in straight-up fashion. Monmouth is absolutely a team I've got my eye on to potentially make some noise given their bracket come March, but maybe not a team I'm excited about laying points with tonight, Paul.
Yeah, and they also beat USC, but you mentioned these mid-majors, they keep losing. Gonzaga lost. St. Mary's lost. Wichita lost again. Arkansas Little Rock, who had a small chance, they got beat. Tennessee Chattanooga, who won at Dayton, they got beat. So you're looking around for possible at-large bids. I can't find many. And I know Monmouth should be safe with an RPI in the 30s, and they've won 12 of their last 13. All right, another game here, too.
Well, hang on a second, because I want your take on the Jaspers, because you came in telling me you had an opinion on Manhattan as a team that may be a squad that we're interested in moving forward down the stretch of this campaign in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAAC, not the MAC, the MAAC. Talk about the Jaspers.
Well, I just think it's a strange line because they played less than a month ago and Monmouth got beat, and now you see a 14 or a 15 in the game. Which is, and I know Monmouth's hot. They've won 12 of the last 13, but here's the loss. So revenge is built into the angle, into the line. The revenge angle built into the line. But here, I think just because you always talk about this, just because you have to win doesn't mean you're going to win and cover big spreads. Because now the pressure, Manhattan can be loose here. The pressure's on Monmouth because they know they can't slip up and hurt their at-large chances. So they're just thinking win. I don't think they're thinking I got to win by 15, 16 points in this game. And I guarantee you Manhattan's well aware of this point spread, too. It's like, guys, we just beat them. Now we're 14-point underdogs. Come on.
Yeah, this is a game we'll get back to when it comes to play of the daytime.
Okay, now Oklahoma State and Kansas, similar game. They met a month ago, and Kansas got drilled on the road by 20. They're off the big win against Oklahoma. Oklahoma State under 500. Kansas trying to win the Big 12 again. Kansas laying a big number at home in this one, Teddy.
Yeah, and really, I don't want any part of Oklahoma State tonight. You talk about the revenge angle. But let's not forget, Oklahoma State is a completely different team now than they were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're talking about a squad that lost their starting point guard early. Forte was out in November. And then Evans comes in, the Frosh, and he's a monster. He's huge for them. He's a team's leader. After Forte, who only played 3 games, he's a team's leading scorer. He's a team's leading assist man. He's one of their leading rebounders. Now Evans has gotten hurt. And what have we seen for Okie State since Evans has gotten hurt? Boy, they're having a hard time putting the biscuit in the basket. An offense that just hasn't worked. And that's not something that's really good news when you're going into Fog Allen Fieldhouse to face a revenge-minded Jayhawk squad. You need an offense that's clicking on all cylinders. You have to be able to trade points with the Jayhawks to win in this venue. And Okie State right now doesn't look to me to be a team capable of trading points with the elite squads. But, there's reason not to like Kansas in this game, too. I'm telling you, that team is gassed. We're talking about a squad that played there. They've been playing together since summertime. They went on one of these preseason trips over to Korea. And the teams that do that tend to have better seasons, but they also tend to run out of gas. So, bang. Yeah. What you have with Kansas, you have limited depth. You have a season that's been going on since the summertime. You have a brutal Big 12 conference. You still have the conference title on the line. You still have the conference tournament coming up. You still have March Madness, which is what they're trying to get to and succeed in more than anything else. For Bill Self right now, it's about managing minutes more than winning games by margin. And that's a big concern for me, at least, when it comes to looking at Kansas as a bet-on team down the stretch. They're not, and I'm not expecting them to win a whole lot of games by margin.
Excellent job. Coming up, deep dive. We're getting to the National League win totals and play of the day on SportsBit. Betting insights today. All right, time for National League win totals. You see the screen up as we run them all down here. Let's start with the Giants, which always a great bet and a terrific manager in Bochy. Teddy, they go out and they add Samardzija and Cueto. My God, Peavy's going to be their number 5 guy probably. And they set the bar high with 90 wins.
Yeah, again, these are the numbers from the Atlantis Casino and Resort in Reno. They set the very first MLB season win totals. They've done it now for the last 10 years. And we've seen other books get involved in the last week or so. But I wanted to focus on these numbers simply because they're the very first numbers in the markets. And one thing that you have to do when you're in Reno, you have to book to your audience. Who goes to the casinos in Reno? Is a lot of people from the Bay Areas. They're betting Giants over. They're betting A's over. So you'll often see something of a, what are we going to call it, a marketplace that's slightly distorted on those two teams in particular just for this one sports book. But look, obviously, Giants, they've been pretty consistent. Every even year they win, every odd year they lose. Oh, it's an even year. I'm not surprised that the Giants have the single highest season win total in all of Major League Baseball, despite the fact that even with that elite pitching, Giants aren't going to score runs in bunches, not easily anyway.
Well, I'm not surprised by this one either. The Cubs at 89, America's team. I mean, you always get action on the Cubs to win the World Series. And coming off what they did last year, they picked up Hayward, made some other moves. The Cubs are going to get a ton of money as well.
Yeah, and look, the Cubs are very real, and they're very scary for the sports books because they know all of this money they've gotten on the Cubs futures for the last 106 years or 108 years may be coming to an end. I mean, the Cubs are legitimate World Series title contenders this year. And just like Theo Epstein ended that endless drought in Boston, where that one of my favorite chants and all his first thing would go 1918 at the Yankee Red Sox games, talking about that last World Series title or previous World Series title for the Red Sox before Theo Epstein arrived. Now he's working his magic in Chicago. And look, that roster's loaded. The lineup's loaded. The pitching staff is loaded. The bullpen is good. Cubs are the team to beat, in my opinion, and the books recognize that. You're not going to likely find a whole lot of bargains to support Chicago early or late in this campaign.
The lineup isn't loaded, but the pitching staff is loaded. The Mets
they got a ton of young talent in that lineup.
Yep.
Don't underestimate the young guys that they have. When you talk about top prospects ready to contribute right away, a lot of guys that got their feet wet last year, I think that lineup can score runs in bunches, Paul.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't go out and spend money, though. I know they're still because of the Madoff fiasco. But they go out. They let Murphy walk, which some people thought that was a good move. But when you're in the number one market, and you go to the World Series, you got to spend some cash.
You're talking about the Mets?
Yeah.
Oh, you were just talking about the Cubs. You got to make the switch. I know what you're talking about.
No, I'm not.
But certainly, when we talk about the Mets, this is a team that has. I don't know that they overachieved. Well, they did overachieve last year. I don't know if they can do it again. The pitching staff is as good as you find anywhere. What do they got? About 8 quality starters for the Mets when everyone gets healthy. But that lineup's just not going to be able to score. And Daniel Murphy's not, they let him go, obviously. They couldn't pay him after the postseason he had, where he was as clutch as you can get. But I really worry about the Mets' ability to score runs far more than San Francisco, far more than Chicago. That's a lineup not built to hit. Certainly not built to score runs in bunches at a major league level.
I'm shocked at the Dodgers at 87. They lose Greinke. Who's going to help out and be the number 2? They get Kashmir. You're stuck there with Boltzinger, maybe Wood. They got a Japanese pitcher and a Cuban guy. Mattingly was a buffoon. Is that a step up that they fired him? You're always worried about the offense. And my God, how do you have a $300 million payroll and your bullpen stinks? That was a problem last year, too. They were 11th in the National League in bullpen in 18th or 19th in all of baseball. So a lot of question marks about the Dodgers and who helps out Kershaw. I'm surprised they're sitting there at 87.
I'm not surprised they're sitting there that high because, I remember, what we're looking at is opening day rosters. These are not the rosters come June. These are not the rosters come August. And the Dodgers have the bankroll to be buyers at every trading deadline. And if they're competitive, they will be buyers at every trading deadline. So remember, the odds makers have to adjust or factor into, the equation. Is this team going to be buying or selling come July? And the Dodgers almost universally are expected to be buyers at that time. But you made one great point here, Paul, and I think this is the last point we want to make with these NL win totals right now. When you're breaking down these teams, it's so easy to focus on starting pitching and lineups. When the reality is that, half the games are decided by bullpens? Close to it. And if you want to make money betting baseball, you're going to focus on starting pitching. Yeah, you're going to focus on lineups. But you have to focus on bullpens as much or more than any other factor. There's certainly randomness in the equation when it comes to bullpens, just like there is, throughout the unique geometry of baseball. But the teams with better bullpens year in, year out are moneymakers. And the teams with weak bullpens, again, year in, year out, lose their backers money. So, you can have Kershaw. You can throw 8 strong, go into the ninth with a 1-0 lead. But you know what? You're not going to cash that ticket unless the closer comes in and shuts the door. That's a big problem for LA. It has been in recent seasons, and that does not look to be fixed heading into the 2016 campaign.
Totally agree. American League tomorrow. We wrap it up with Money Time, Play of the Day.
Money Time, Play of the Day. Where are we going to go here, Paul? We're going to go back to the MAC, and talk about Monmouth and Manhattan. We talked about how the sharp money has come in on the Jaspers plus the points today. And Paul, you agree with that move?
Yeah, Manhattan plus the 14. Again, they played about a month ago. Manhattan won the game. Monmouth has won 12 of 13. That's the loss. 21 and 5, 13 and 2 in conference play. But they were down 14 against Ryder on Friday night. Needed a miracle comeback, a 14-0 run to tie the game. Then they hit a 3 to win it and got a stop. I think the pressure's going to get to Monmouth here. And again, their goal is to win the game. It's not to blow them out. And guess what? It's a donut game. It's a look-ahead spot because they have a big game Sunday. Strange, they play 3 games in a week. They play Sunday on the road, and guess what? They play Iona on television on Friday, and they dropped 108 on them on the road the first meeting. They're looking ahead to that Iona game, that big matchup Friday. I know it's a little bit of a revenge angle, but again, take the points with Manhattan tonight and the pressure of March and the look-ahead at-large bid. Everyone talking about them. Nice record. Too many points here. Manhattan plus the points. That's it.
And this is one that you probably want to jump in on sooner rather than later. Some of the quote-unquote leading indicator books down to 13.5 on this game. So I'm not convinced the plus 14s will hold between now and tip-off.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll see you tomorrow on SportsBit. Betting Insights today.